All right, everybody. Hope y'all can hear me, because I can hear myself. How's it going? Welcome to Zonebreakers Twitch.tv channel. We're going over the Georgia VGC Draft League, doing the Series 9 format. I'm your host, Umby. Next to me, I've got Boost Mexi, aka Manny. How you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. Honestly, so excited for these matches today, just to see how these players adapt in playoffs.
All right, and we're currently in the quarterfinals, so if you want to check out the bracket, just go ahead and hit ! bracket so you can kind of follow along. But this is what we're looking at. A couple of our players, we have Patillac versus Strider is going to be our first match of the day, and we also have Professor Walnut versus Sanaito. So just to give a little bit of background on them, I've got some nifty little information to pull up for you. On each side of your screen right now, you can check out what each player drafted. There were a couple of trades that have been initiated, but for the most part, their cores have been pretty much solidified. We've been playing over the course of 7 weeks, so you can see kind of the win-loss record of each of these players. Now, these are the seeds going into these playoffs, how the matches were decided. They're a little bit off because we actually have one seed, our third place seed that dropped out. So Sanaito's actually going to be our sixth seed, despite placing 7th in the draft league overall. But man, can you give me a rundown of what you're expecting from this match, just based on what we have on the screen?
No, I'm also super excited to see this, particularly because both of our quarterfinal matches are actually grudge matches. I believe Sanaito and Patillac played, or Professor Walnut played during week 6, and Patillac and Strider during week 7. From Patillac's side, I think they usually love to bring the Celesteela to almost every single match. It's been a star for them the entire season, but I have to imagine they won't be bringing it versus Strider specifically, just due to all the threats that pose against it, with the Rotom, Charizard, Torkoal, and it doesn't really serve to really serve any offense in the matchup versus Strider. Though I believe they will be leaning heavily on the Latios, Cinderace, and Garchomp in conjunction with Tornadus to put on a lot of hyper offense and just really wear the team down super fast. And from Strider's side, what were you saying?
Oh, you got it.
Yeah, from Strider's side, they've been bringing this Sun Core almost every single time, flexing like their 6th slot, whether it be the Hitmontop or the Obstagoon that they've been leaning on recently. But I expect to see much of the same. There is an avenue possibly to go for the Chandelure Hitmontop and transition into some sort of Trick Room lead, trying to take over the game with Torkoal, but we'll have to see.
Yeah, and me personally, like one of the things that's been kind of consistent throughout this league, Strider's had a tough time versus both Latios and Latios. Just the way that it matches up really well into the team. They don't have a lot, or at least not a lot reliable to really strike it super effective. So it kind of gets to run away with the match if they haven't found a way to address it. You can see it versus Kantan. That was in week 4, where they got a 2-0 win against Strider with Latios. It really actually went untouched almost during the second game of that match. And then they struggled to beat Patillac, as mentioned, in week 7 as well. So I think that's the main thing I have eyes on, but we've also mentioned how much trouble they've had with speed control overall and how that can kind of destroy their strategy as well. So I'm pretty excited for this particular match, just turning around and see if there are any adjustments made only a week afterward. But also do want to follow up on Professor Walnut versus Sanaito's team. So if you're not aware, Sanaito's kind of like in our inner circle here. We talk strategy quite a bit, so we were kind of excited to see how well they match into Professor Walnut's team, who I'm also a little bit personally excited to see from, because if you take a look at their win record here, they were struggling in the early part of the season and made an amazing run in the last 3 weeks. Keep in mind, Strider had a strong early start to this season, so they're actually one of our higher seeds. And then Sanaito had just positioned themselves into the number 1 seed in week 5. So having to play back-to-back against what were speculated to be tough matchups and getting a 2-0 win in both of them really speaks to how well they've adapted their strategies. Speaking of which, they do have some very interesting Pokemon on their team, and admittedly it's hard to pilot, but the payoff for piloting it well, I think is really valuable. One thing I want to pinpoint on is the Registeel for their team. If you're not aware, Series 9, that was with no restricteds. So no Zacian, Kyogre, Groudon, rampaging around the map. Registeel had some really interesting end games where if you didn't reserve any options to successfully deal with it, it kind of set up amnesias and iron defenses and just body pressed you into oblivion. And that's where I think that Sanaito's going to have trouble really dealing with if they haven't set up a really strong offense on the front end.
Definitely agree. I'm curious to see what kind of offense that Sanaito really leans into for this matchup. I know the first time around, Professor Walnut bought the Wakanberry Slowbro in addition with the Rabombi and really had some super creative ally switch and speed swap strategies to play into Sanaito's obvious mode of Colossal. But I really want to see what kind of adjustments they can make going into this matchup to be able to suppress either the max option from the Slowbro or the Trick Room into some other mode with the Porygon Z or opting into the Rillaboom or the Registeel. And Sanaito's team, it's kind of streamlined in terms of offense. It really doesn't have a slow down mode. You're either going in with the Colossal or you are maxing the Zapdos as well very early and trying to go crazy. They haven't shown us yet is the Zapdos Electivire all season, and I would love to see that come out in this match potentially, just to kind of throw Walnut for a loop. Maybe blow up that Wakanberry strategy that they have early on. There's also the possibility of us seeing Torracat, as well as maybe potentially Mamoswine to put down some early pressure onto the majority of the team minus the Entei or Slowbro. So I think they have some options here. They just really have to be creative in terms of how they want to approach the early game and in turn the late game strategy with Registeel.
All right, fair enough. Now, if you haven't been following along, I have been doing like weekly updates in regards to this. You can find it on my channel. Didn't think to actually put a link to that, but I'll get that to you eventually. Either way, the matches from the previous weeks are also found on the Georgia VGC's YouTube channel. So make sure to check that out if you want to kind of follow along the story that we've been on so far. In the meantime, though, let's go ahead and get into the matches. We have Strider versus Patillac. The names on this are definitely wrong, so you'll have to bear with me for a second. All right, and we're gonna have Strider's view for this matchup, just so you can see what their thought process is going along this.
Sounds great.
Okay, so they did bring along Rotom, Shedinja, and Chandelure. So I think you were on the money with the Trick Room strat going to this one.
Okay, I'm actually super excited for this. Hold on a second. Strider has definitely been one who I've seen with their teams. They have stuck to the norm in terms of their Sun strategy. So seeing them switch things up like this is very, very exciting.
Okay, but always the ever tried and true Landorus with running Assault Vest, I think is going to be pretty viable because again, Latios, where I'm kind of honing in on that one. They're going to have to not only take care of it offensively, but kind of shore up against it because it can output a lot of damage really quickly. I'm really wondering how well they'll be able to set up this Trick Room because that was an expert build on the Chandelure and not a Focus Sash. They say the Focus Sash for the Shedinja. Let's see how that pans out.
Agreed. I would have expected the Focus Sash on the Chandelure, and I also didn't really anticipate seeing both the Shedinja and the Shandy on the exact same squad. So very, very curious to see how this pans.
Okay, Patillac with a Tailwind lead. It looks like he just wants to try and mow them down really quickly. I think Strider's in a little bit of trouble here. I don't know how they successfully get the Trick Room up if that's what they're going for. Yep, there it is on the move list right now, as you can see.
Loves the ally switch Rotom.
The bane of my existence.
Very well. The bane of everybody on ladder.
True too.
And let's see here. Is Patillac going to call the ally switch?
It depends.
A surprise to them.
It depends. We didn't get a chance to see the week 7 matchup and how it played out, so kind of going into this one blind without seeing their intended. And right on the money, they call it.
Unfortunate.
Their hand has been shown, and they've called it. They're all in.
Heavily reading into Strider's habits there. Absolutely blown out with that.
Okay, now they do have a little bit of a reprieve as the Hurricane misses the Rotom. It wasn't going to do too much damage, but reserving as much as they can right now, especially at this early of a deficit, is going to be a little bit of cushion to kind of move forward.
Parting shot there on the opposite, so it does have some flexibility between both being offensive and having some defensive capabilities there, which I love to see that.
Agreed, but is this going to be the max option though? It feels like it was put there as a means of dealing with the Latios. So how are we setting up into it, and how much of an impact is it going to make? Oh, he switches out.
Oh, doesn't go for the parting shot there. It actually goes for the heart swap into Landorus. Maybe looking to soak up a close combat there from the Urshifu.
Indeed, with some defensive drops, maybe they'll get some extra damage in to kind of clean it up quickly. Are they maxing the Rotom?
They are maxing the Rotom, and I think it's time we find out whether or not the Torn or the Urshifu is sashed.
Well, if you do assume that either of them are sashed.
Very true. The confidence in this one. Let's see.
I mean, quite honestly, it could be a choice item on Urshifu's Patillac's Urshifu. Excuse me.
Rain Dance comes out. Are we going to see Surging Strikes instead of the CC covering for the swap?
Could be. But there it is.
And there it is. Oh no.
Patillac making all the right moves here, jamming up Strider. Oh my goodness.
This Urshifu had just been going insane, targeting that first slot every single turn.
Okay, legitimately,
rain as well.
Legitimately going into this, I wasn't expecting this much of a banger within the first couple of turns.
Likewise. And there is no sash. Okay.
Okay, this one for me. Max Lightning sending down the electric terrain, but it's not going to be too much benefit from either side on that one, so not to be worried here. It's really going to be on the Rotom to carry this game, which, depending on what Pokemon comes out on Patillac's side, is a possibility. But there it is.
There's the capable Latios.
And Patillac's Dynamax is still intact. It's not going to be taking any super effective damage from the Rotom, so it's almost free to do whatever it wants. Unless the Obstagoon can actually do some damage and get a quick KO on it, which still seems a little bit unlikely. Let's see how this plays out.
They are going for the Protect to get that Flamor proc to enable Guts, so hopefully going for potentially a double up in the next turn, or just going to be targeting down the Torn here, but it opts not to.
Oh,
Adios also going for Protect. Oh my gosh.
I think Patillac sniffs that out. There's probably some information that was revealed in week 7 that we just didn't really get a window into. Oh my goodness. Insult to injury. Obstagoon takes a ton of damage and gets confused by Hurricane in the process.
This one is looking all but wrapped up. Max Geyser goes into the Latios, I believe, into that Protect. Not going to take too much from this, even in the rain.
But it's the most it can do while still utilizing this Dynamax, though. So, and you really, at this point with the Tornadus, you really don't want to KO it to get it out. And there's the forfeit. Understandable,
honestly.
Jinx. Anyway. But yeah, honestly, week 7 must have had some big reveals for Patillac to have made that big of a play, like several turns in a row. So if this continues on, Strider is in a lot of trouble.
Agreed. I do love the attempt to switch up the game plan, going there with the Trick Room. Just getting absolutely sniffed out on the first turn, and not really, like you said, having a solid plan for getting the Trick Room up outside of that ally switch, really having to make a hard read there on turn 1. And in a matchup like this, I don't think it's going to lend you very many chances to actually get back into the game if you're wrong.
Agreed. And now, gotta wonder going into this next game, because like this is for all the marbles. I'm wondering what kind of adjustments they even can make at this point to make this comeback. And you'll have to bear with me for just a second. I'm having some technical difficulties on my end, but we'll get right back to the match for in a second. But with the resources that Strider currently has in the position they have, how do you think they can overcome this matchup versus Patillac?
Well, in all honesty, I do believe if that Obscune gets into position, undamaged, unharmed, do think they have a shot at cleaning up this next match. My only problem is how will Patillac adjust going into this next match. They've seen Strider trying to go for the Trick Room that we presume did not come in week 7. So now they've seen them going for the Trick Room, they're willing to adjust. Does the Latios even come this time around? Are we switching things up into Celesteela, just opting to say, hey, you can get Trick Room up, I'm gonna go Celesteela, I'm gonna try to sweep you anyways. There is no Raichu, so there is no fear of the lightning rod redirection from Patillac's side, but even still, the Celesteela is definitely primed to go crazy with this specific lineup.
All right. Well, let's see what they opt into. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. Remember, these are pre-recorded matches. So we'll find out just in a second how Strider's going to adapt to this. As soon as they press the play button. All right, you know what? I'm in control. I can just move ahead. There we go.
Power of modern technology, folks.
You know, and some amateur stream hosting, you know.
They do opt into the Comfey this time.
Okay, are we thinking what, weakness policy with Draining Kiss?
Potentially the weakness policy, or just saying, hey, I'm believing in my Latios ability to sweep you. I'm gonna max it, set up, and start to go crazy. And as soon as you damage it, we're healing up as well. Or potentially also going for the counter Trick Room as well, saying, oh, you know what? I'm going to max counter Trick Room. You're gonna waste your turn trying to set up different offense, and instead, it's not gonna mean anything.
Just confirm Trick Room on Comfey.
But yes.
Cool.
But I believe that we did see a sneak peek. This seems like a complete Trick Room mode, Strider.
And oddly enough, did we even see Torkoal in the lineup?
Don't remember, truth be told.
Because I really feel if you're going to set up Trick Room, like one of the stars in the lineup would probably be Torkoal getting the eruption down. Though then again, getting it into a position where it can abuse the eruption might be a little bit of a challenge. But in the meantime, Patillac can go ahead and max the Latios. They're going into this completely confident they can just go ahead and run these pockets.
Big early game max, potentially just proving. Oh, and there's a Draining Kiss. You saw weakness policy prod. Yep.
Hey, I'm 2 for 2.
What's it going into though?
Gotta expect the Chandelure, right?
You would imagine so.
There it is.
Chandelure is down. What move came out here from the Rotom though? I'm so curious.
I think it's a little bit too afraid to call the ally switch. It's a little bit tricky because you already showed your hand in the first game. You didn't want to go with the same move twice in case they predicted it again. It was all they could really do to try and set up the Trick Room if they're not using the Focus Sash. And again, Strider down one Pokemon in the beginning stages of the game, and on top of that, I don't know how do you stop
the obstacle here.
Yeah, how do you stop the Latios at this point? Like, this weakness policy proc, it's the fastest thing on the field, and you don't have any way to steal back speed control.
You would have to imagine at this point they have to go for a cheeky ally switch and potential max right here. Try to pick up a KO on Latios. There isn't much room.
Oh, Patillac says right back at you with the ally switch.
And the Comfey pulling out his own tech against him. Ally switch. Into the Rotom, trying to call an ally switch, but it doesn't matter here. The obstacle is obstructed. No damage goes down. That's just a wasted turn from Strider's side.
It's going really bad really quickly, and it's down to Obstagoon, I think, to really save this game. It's got the burn, it's got the guts.
Oh, wait.
Dynamax is still available. Shedinja is still on the field. And if Patillac doesn't have a way to deal with the Shedinja, then perhaps there's a chance to come back. You got to expect that, at least Max Airstream is available, right?
You start with Max Airstream being available, you also suspect that Max Hailstorm is available.
True,
that
too.
Hail chip. Granted, there is, of course, the focus sash on the Shedinja, but ultimately, I don't believe that's going to be enough.
Big damage from Draining Kiss. It's dark and normal type, so yeah. Ooh.
Mm-hmm. And something of note as well, the no max coming out from Strider, whatever's taking this hit is most likely going down.
Oh, and the ally switch to take the max hailstorm, so we don't even get to see the hail come down to deal with that. Still no Dynamax activated.
Wait a second. Strider might have put themselves into a position here to be able to sweep with the Shedinja, assuming that there is nothing in back that can hit it.
We still have to be concerned about what the Comfey is going to do, though. With Tri-Edge, it's still going to outpace Ally Switch if they continue to opt for it. So that might open up some avenues for Patillac to just go ahead and win as well. But they go ahead and Helping Hand, they're just going to go ahead and let it rip.
Helping Hand, you would assume into the Obstruct here. Right, any moves not being able to hit the Shedinja.
Big damage from Shedinja's Shadow Sneak. And
it does carry the Air Slash, but
also
out another ally switch.
This is going to get pretty dicey. We're literally rolling dice here, so that's not really even a pun. Or is it?
The question here, are we calling ally switches? Are we going for the floral healing? Oh, just opposite the protect.
And I believe floral healing still goes through it. Well, no, we're just going to go for damage onto the obstacle. That's the saving grace, so you might as well put the damage down as soon as you can.
And let's get it out of here. Shadow Sneak not connecting there into the protect. It's odd though, popping off into the Comfey, taking out some of that HP, but Obstacle's on its last legs here.
Not quite enough.
The question I'm so curious about, will we get to see what is in back? Patillac here.
And curious enough from Strider, Dynamax is still available. Not sure if you just value the Obstruct a lot and wanted to keep that intact. Yeah, that's a resource that's just not being used that could steal back the game. And at this point,
it suggests to me, honestly, that we're going to be maxing the Shedinja.
I mean, that's the only other option at this point.
Yeah.
They're possibly looking for a Shadow Sneak to go ahead and take out the Latios, so they don't have to worry about the Air Slash anymore. So now the Comfey doesn't have anything left to attack them with, but now we're still dealing with possibly Celesteela, possibly Tornadus, and there's no ally switch to really save the Shedinja at this point.
And the Garchomp is out.
That's an incoming Rock Slide if I've ever seen one. There it is. Strider recognizes
so as well. Yep.
Okay, good games. It's unfortunate that the game flowed this way. This has kind of been the trend from the previous matches where it has to go up against these dragons and has trouble dealing damage to it. But good games overall. Really, the way that this was steamrolled was pretty crazy, starting from the first turn. So I'm a little bit devoid of words right now. From the call on the ally switch from turn 1 to the coverage move with the Prankster Rain Dance plus Surging Strikes calling the Landorus switch in, like, hey, Patillac is the prophet, and I have no reason to say otherwise.
We're absolutely covering, and even with that steamroll, I do want to give props to Strider. I commend going for an alternate strategy that is not in your normal wheelhouse. In an attempt to make a comeback in this matchup that you lost previously. It takes a lot of guts here, especially in playoffs, to shift away from your strategy that got you there. And even though it wasn't fully executed, hopefully this looks to the future and their future draft league matches, whenever they may be, they can innovate there a little bit and push even further.
Agreed. For now, though, Patillac's moving on into the semifinals. Their next opponent is going to be Mocha. Keep an eye out for that. We're going to come back next Saturday, to go over coverage of that, if they're willing to provide us with that coverage. For the time being, though, we are going to go ahead and switch over to Professor Walnut and Sanaito's match to see how that one played out. Again, we can touch base on that a little bit, again, because the previous matchup, they met in week 6, where Sanaito was favored. He was coming off a little bit of a hot streak there and just kind of ran into a wall when he met up with the good professor here. That's especially since they had just adapted a strategy, recognizing Colossal as a major threat, and finally bringing in Slowbro to kind of slow that down. Which struck me as a little bit odd, because so far Zapdos has come along, I believe 100% of Sanaito's gains, but there wasn't much fear of that, or at least with the place of the Wakan Berry, there wasn't too much fear. Trying to think, do you go for that same strategy again, or do you try and adjust a little bit, predicting like, okay, Sanaito learned their lesson. They don't want to deal with the Wakan Slowbro this time. They've got to switch it up.
I think one of the things we have to mention in terms of the matchup and in terms of perspective is the fact that Freshers Walnut team, it's truly meant to supplement and protect this Porygon Z. Early game, it's all about the PZ, protecting that, and then the late game, it's all about protecting the Registeel. So in between, there just aren't very many obvious max options, I would say, from their side. So the Slowbro coming out as one of them, it comes as a surprise to us, but in reality, if you take a deeper look, it's not as outlandish as one might initially think. Think that they are priced into bringing nearly the same lineup again, trying maybe in some regard that Slowbro, if not just on the select screen, just to make sure that Sanaito says, hey, maybe I don't bring Cole. He needs to have something to second guess that, because I believe if Cole gets to the position versus Professor Walnut, it's just going to get out of hand. So I do think in some capacity there will be incentive to bring the Slowbro, though he does obviously have to have in the back of his mind, like, hey, Sanaito has seen this before previously. At some point, he's probably going to adjust, probably going to have some kind of countermeasures, and I need to be ready to adapt on the fly, or in games 2 and 3, barring I lose one in between there somewhere. But other than that, I expect to see much of the same. The Ribombee serving as an ally switcher and a speed swapper to help establish some early speed in this matchup for Professor Walnut. It's going to be crucial. The Porygon Z as his main offense in the early game is going to be amazing. There's potential maybe to see an Entei appear somewhere, or a Rillaboom sneak through the cracks. But I expect to see the Registeel in almost every single game towards the end. And probably still opening with the Ribombee just to, again, dominate that speed control, or potentially Togetic as well to set up Trick Room. Something in that capacity is coming along, I have to imagine.
Okay, we'll see if the players have similar thoughts as we gotta go ahead and get into the first match in this series. Sanaito, and my names are still wrong on the screen, I apologize for that. Gonna go ahead with a double electric duo. So keep in mind, Zapdos gets access to Discharge, so a common little cheesy strategy is you run it really fast, you run Discharge, and you get to activate Electivire's Motor Drive so that it gets to run really fast. The roadblock to that, however, is going to be the Ribombee being the fastest thing between each of these two teams. Unless the Zapdos has a Choice Scarf, it's not going to get a chance to get that off before Ribombee does what it needs to do.
Agreed. This lead, it looks to put on a lot of pressure into what Professor Walnut has lined up here. But let's see how he adapts and how he plays into it, Is it the Zapdos trying to go for a max? Is the Electivire trying to go for a max here? It's can't really say.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and lead things off with the Porygon Z, like a very reliable powerhouse for Professor Walnut in a good majority of his games. And there it is. Zapdos going to go ahead and activate the Motor Drive. And that is showing the Scarf as it moved before the Ribombee. Did a pretty good chunk of damage to it as well.
Gonna let the Electivire also move first here, which is crucial before getting off this speed swap into the Slowbro. Or the Porygon Z, rather, sorry.
Same difference. They're both pink. They both have a little bit of blue on them.
True.
They both look a little ditzy. Okay, now here's the equalizer though. The Max Strike is going to slow Electivire back down to its normal speed and pick up a knockout onto the Zapdos as well. So even though they got set up, is trying to figure out if the KO that it received on their end is even worth it for Sanaito. Well, with Porygon Z paralyzed from the discharge, which is a little bit of a luck factor there. I think they're still in a pretty good position to go ahead and steamroll the game, but let's see what happens.
I would agree. You know, from this point forward, you really have to just say like, you know, am I looking to pick up KOs? Am I looking to stack up boosts? Professor Walnut, very unfortunate there with the paralysis, but again, their PZ is still alive. They still have the ally switch options. They can go for all kinds of tricks here to still pull this out.
All right, listen, people, I'm gonna need you to stop using ally switch. This is the third time, the third player using this.
It's broken. Ban it.
Don't even ban it. Just don't use it, please. Either way, this is gonna help up Organzi put some more damage down. Possibly picking up the KO on. Oh no, it's gonna be out of range for the KO on Electivire, but ooh, and just out of range for Torracat to KO it as well. If it had access to the max knuckle that it fired off previously, might have seen a little bit more, but oh, it actually does pick up the KO on the Electivire. Organzi is incredibly strong and scarily so. This is a testament to like if it gets a good setup, the Porygon-Z is going to destroy the front end of teams. That's why he's been running it with Rabambi, with Togetic. It just gets to run away with games, get like 1 to 2 KOs really quickly in the first 3 to 4 turns of the game. Right, now with all the Dynamax pieces off the board, let's see how each player maneuvers into the end game.
This end game is going to be something interesting here with the Registeel and back, you would have to imagine.
This is one of the things that we called out.
Set up.
Registeel being in the end game without a viable way of taking it down is going to be a pain. Now, Sanaito does have Torracat. It does have access to utility moves that may help this out. But then again, so does Politoed potentially. If it decides to Iron Defense, it can just spam Encores over and over again while the Torracat whittles it down.
Absolutely, you know, getting trapped here, this taunt Encore strategy, you know, they're gonna be forced to struggle again and again, and honestly, at this point, it might just wear down the Registeel and the Togetic.
Also, something to call out right now, as it may be important later in the series, Politoed did not activate Drizzle, so it is
That's right.
Yeah, so it's likely Water Absorb to deal with the Slowbro. That might be that they remember from the previous week.
They're the Mon struggling, slowly chipping themselves out. This is going to be a race here to finish.
And on top of that, we still have access to moves that can burn the opposing Pokemon. So if they land these, oh, there's one as a matter of fact. So if either Scald or Will-O-Wisp land, then Registeel is pretty much out for the count. Whether it protects, whether it Iron Defenses, if it gets Encored, there's just no recourse for it. And the Togetic's doing major damage to itself with the struggle as well. Like it seems almost like a wrap right now.
Absolutely, the race is 100% in Sanaito's favor, and I think Professor Walnut going forward is going to look to adjust to not get caught in this kind of scenario, where they're pinned down by the taunt and Encore.
Okay, might as well play this one out though. See if there's any more information though. To the last HP
and,
bar.
Burn there just pretty much solidifies it.
Yep. There's the struggle. Minimal damage to Politoed, while all the damage to the Registeel. Same thing for Togetic. Stop hitting yourself. Stop hitting yourself. Yeah, this one's wraps. Yeah, so good job to Sanaito for maneuvering it into this kind of end game. Like, it was a very explosive start, but I think crucially getting the both Rabambi and Porygon-Z out of the way, prevent them from snowballing or even picking up an extra kill outside of Dynamax, is very crucial to lead into this end game. So then the question becomes, moving into game 2, even though Registeel kind of been like a linchpin for Professor Walnut's end games, how valuable is it moving into this matchup now that Sanaito has shown some pretty cool utility adjustments?
No, that's something I wanted to point out. I think there are two things going into this next that's super important. One, the utility from Politoed, it being not Drizzle, in addition to having the Encore, makes you wonder, is there a Parasong somewhere hiding in there as well for an end game? where Sanaito was able to take out more Mons than Professor Walnut, then take out more Mons on Professor Walnut's side and set up like a Parish uh, Parish song kind of end game scenario. Additionally, what happens next game if there is no paralysis on the Porygon Z?
Agreed. I think that's going to be kind of a scary point, because if we just see the same number of turns, I believe, is Electivire faster than Porygon Z? I know Porygon Z is base 90. I don't see enough Electivires.
85? I could be mistaken.
Might need a quick stat check on that one, but I think either way, it's kind of a scary position, to where even though you get the initial speed boost, if you then lose that speed boost from the max strike, and if Porygon Z outpaces you, then you're kind of concerned on whether or not you can survive the next turn. And if you can't, Porygon Z just kind of destroys the rest of the game, especially since your only resistance to normal is the Gmax Colossal. If you've maxed early on with the Electivire, you probably don't have the Colossal in the back. That's just my thoughts, but just gonna go ahead and move straight into the next game to see what the players' thoughts are on that matter.
And just a quick thought there, the Electivire is base 95, so we do know that it is faster than the PZ in that scenario.
Excellent. Then the other question is, it depends on the nature, right? If it's running Jolly, then you're probably in the clear. If it's Adamant, it's a toss-up, because then it also depends on Professor Walnut, whether or not it's running Modest, Porygon Z, or Timid. You can probably expect Modest, since the Rabombi is going to be carrying its speed through Speed Swap. But none of that matters right now. Both teams have switched up their first turn strategies. Even with the double electric strategy Sanaito pulled off the last game, Walnut was bold enough to pull out 2 Pokemon that are weak to electricity right off the bat. Probably just not scared, considering that Follow Me was available to draw the electric move from Electivire, and probably still has that Wakanberry from the last set that they played to mitigate damage from the discharge. As such, they're not afraid to go ahead and throw up the Trick Room, which is gonna throw a monkey wrench into some of Sanaito's plans.
Agreed. I don't know if Sanaito really prepared for this lead here. Honestly, I'm surprised to see them switch from their game 1 lead, to be told. After having such a dominant performance in the early game, I would have expected them to try to go for a repeat, but I'm trying to make a read here, looking for Walnut adjusting, and Walnut giving that up, but not in the way that favored Sanaito in this instance.
Either way, Polito looking to make a repeat performance of the last game's in-game. Polito into Togetic as a utility might actually jam it up well enough in the early game that, because I believe this Togetic doesn't have any attack moves. If it gets taunted or encored, it's kind of just a sitting duck, and that might open some possibilities for Sanaito to predict a switch, or to simply just lay in to double up into the remaining slot, knowing that Walnut has to switch. Okay, but he's going to switch himself here in fear of the Grassy Glide from the Rillaboom. I'm going to douse this attack out with Torracat's Intimidate. Still wondering how they want to utilize the Sneasel here. With these leads, not really doing too much to support anyone. It's not using the fake tears that he's normally using, and he couldn't set up the Colossal early on with the Surf that it would normally hit it with to get the steam engine going.
Yeah, you're forced here to essentially kind of go for the Colossal Max without having the boost, I would imagine. Not having the exact same offensive pressure, but still potentially having to be able to put up those rocks should Sanaito aim for that goal. Meanwhile, Walnut kind of still here in the driver's seat, still has the Togetic to offer its utility, still has full health on every other Mon. They're looking pretty good. They have Sanaito here out of position.
Agreed. The only saving grace, I would say, is now that Trick Room is up, Colossal still can operate within it. Doesn't necessarily need the steam engine, but it definitely would prefer to have the weakness policy proc that would come with the Surf. That being said, it's going to go ahead and Gmax here, possibly looking to set up rocks, possibly looking to set up Sun in case the Slowbro did come in. That'll actually help with the weakness policy proc, so it doesn't take a ton of damage when the Slowbro inevitably ends up hitting it with a water attack.
Agreed. I'm really curious to see here what this Torcat's doing.
All right, Vocalith comes out. It's really wanting to get some damage down just in general. It's going to get chip damage against the Slowbro, who's just been untouched so far, and we know it's just kind of this looming threat, especially since Dynamax has not been activated on Walnut's side so far.
Dynamax has not been activated, but this Slowbro will be taking a decent bit of chip between the Flare Blitz and the rocks. Though they have the grassy terrain recovery, so maybe they'll be less inclined to go for an immediate max into it. In addition to that, Sanaito does still have a max guard available to them, and I do believe that Trick Room is coming to a close here in the next couple turns, so I think we have a very interesting endgame setup.
Agreed, but assuming that Trick Room does go down, that might actually spell some trouble for Sanaito. It doesn't look like they've brought any of their speedier mons to play this time outside of the Sneasel, which again is taking kind of a support role on their team, typically supporting with the Surf to activate the Steam Engine or Fake Tears to support the damage from Zapdos. In this scenario, Porygon Z still being intact is still kind of a scary prospect, even with Trick Room going down.
Agreed. The PZ able to set up its own speed control for itself, especially out of a Trick Room situation, delivering those crazy max strikes. So we're not really going to see that. It's going to be going for the Hyper Beam, I imagine, with the Slowbro maxing.
Slowbro Dynamaxes for the crowd. Sanaito's calling it out with a max guard, and rightfully so. Good call, right? But still, what is the Torracat doing? All right, it's going to get some more chip damage going for the burn into the Slowbro. It's not going to
get that grassy terrain recovery.
True too. Overall, though, it's still not going to be a strong enough change to, especially since Dynamax is now active. You still have to slow down the Slowbro somehow. I know that's kind of a mouthful. And
that
again,
nasty thought coming out from the PZ there, just setting itself up. Anything taking a hit from it is going to be absolutely devastating in these next couple turns.
I think even Gmax Colossal may be at risk here if it's carrying something. It gets Thunderbolt, it gets Dark Pulse, all neutral against Shadow Ball. All these are neutral against the Colossal, but it's weaker on the specialty defense side. So a +2 special attack Porygon Z could still very much rip through it.
We see the hard swap here though. Not looking to stay in there and take a Max Geyser, switching into that Politoed.
And there it is, Torracat takes a ton of damage just from Dark Pulse, not even a stab move.
Hanging on just barely thanks to that Eviolite.
And then going ahead and taking out that last bit of HP with its own Flare Blitz. Porygon Z, as usual, putting in a lot of work for Professor Walnut. This is something that's just got to be addressed, but it's hard to do that when an almost full health Slowbro is staring you in the face, and you don't have a lot of good ways to really hit it. You can even tell with Sanaito, especially since they were unable to set up like a max flare, they were kind of scared to leave it in. Probably don't even have the a solar beam to hit it super effective. So it might have something like max quake, expecting to have to deal with the Porygon Z a lot more than it would have to deal with the Slowbro. Yeah, its presence is really huge right now, and Sanaito's suffering for it.
Absolutely, though we did see our confirmations on that water absorbed Politoed last turn, being able to absorb that Max Geyser, negating that damage that would have gone to Colossal. So a great switch there from Sanaito. Where do they go from here? What is their endgame?
It's gonna be tough. They might have to rely on the Sneasel a lot, but you can finish off if you can finish off the Porygon Z somehow. There's a possibility you can lay into some Fake Tears for the Politoed to hopefully clean up the end game, but that's a big ask to ask right now.
Agreed. I don't believe that we're going to see the PZ any longer here, except it does hang on just barely on that 5 HP from the Rocks. I believe Rocks is over. Vocaloth going down. We've entered the stage of the game where if British Steel comes out, if we see that coming from Professor Walnut's side, that is all but wraps, I believe, for Sanaito.
Let's see.
We know it's not there.
Yeah,
the real one being out earlier.
Great. Sanaito doesn't know it quite yet, or may have forgotten, just as I just forgot until you mentioned it right now. Oops. But there might be an avenue for them to win. It really hinges on how the Sneasel moves into this next turn.
Agreed. We need to see this Porygon Z going down here, I believe. Actually switches out though, preserving it, recognizing it to be a useful tool just as we did. Deciding to send in that Rillaboom to take whatever blow was going in there. I'm very curious to see though, did Sanaito cover with an ice move targeting?
They did not.
They did not.
They went for the Snarl, hoping to cut down. Looks like they were hoping to get the KO on the Porygon Z, not expecting a swap out from Professor Walnut, and then slow down the Slowbro's special offense with a Snarl. I don't believe they really had to worry about that though. Sneasel's already low health and frail as it is. Even in the rain, Hydro Pump at a -1, I have no doubt that it would have killed. That just leaves the Politoed left to match up against it, and it already wasn't doing damage into the Politoed. I think the ask there is to make sure that you kill the Porygon Z. Now, again, I don't think you can really expect the Rillaboom to switch into that slot. So I wouldn't say you cover that switch with the triple axle, but hindsight 2020, you fire triple axle into that slot, or even just a safe move, and you grab the Porygon Z, and you hope that Hydro Pump misses and Sneasel hangs on.
Absolutely, but it's looking like we're in a kind of situation here where as long as this Rillaboom is allowed to survive, not KO'd, and thankfully due to the nature of the rain being up, it doesn't look like it's even a threat at this current moment from the Colossal. I think this Rillaboom is just positioned to really take over the game and close out this game too for Walnut here.
Agreed. Like, even with Colossal's high base defense, under grassy terrain without Dynamax, even taking it neutral, it's gonna take a lot of pain for this.
Absolutely, and we have to also factor in. I'm not sure whether or not Politoed can take the grassy glide all the way.
Okay,
so it does seem to hang on.
Yeah, that's actually big information right there. Depending on if this goes to a game 3, we now know a general range that the Politoed could survive a grassy glide, which could mean a lot for the turn of events. Ooh, and Rillaboom takes a burn here. Okay, this is an end game. We have Sanaito with 2 Pokemon against 1, and it's a Rillaboom, and it's burned. We also know Politoed has it took the grassy glide pretty well. So if it can grab some additional health from this grassy terrain with the reduced damage from the grassy glide, there is a possibility it may be able to stall enough turns that the burn puts Rillaboom in KO range. But Porygon Z is still on the field.
Still kicking, putting out major damage into the Colossal with that critical hit. Though offing itself with the Life Orb, so at this point in the match, it comes down to whether or not this Politoed is able to square off with the Rillaboom, having not protected that turn, actually going for the attack. Maybe with some kind of crit here, we'll be able to get some damage down, but looking dicey now.
All right, here it goes. The end game of the ages. Politoed is going to have to protect stall for its life. At a certain point, it's going to need to attack, but knowing exactly what range you need to do that at is going to be tricky from here.
Agreed. I think we're going to have to get the triple protect here at the very least, and pray for some kinds of crits in addition to both the grassy terrain recovery with the leftovers. Thankfully, the Rillaboom is having its own grassy terrain recovery negated by that burn, in addition to cutting its attack damage in halves, which is fantastic for the Politoed, but it's very, very dicey here. A double probably would not put it into range of surviving, I don't believe. I believe we're going to need the triple protect here.
All right, and grassy terrain is down, so Rillaboom no longer has that recovery to negate the burn. It's going to take a few more turns to see if we can wrap this up. Okay, Politoed survives that one comfortably.
Sanaito praying for the Scald there, not getting it.
Okay, and this is also some information for Professor Walnut too. Since Politoed's firing off Scald, you can bet that they don't have Icy Wind. So Sanaito's last move is still hidden. Okay,
Going for the attack. Don't believe the burn's gonna KO here though, so it's gonna be needing one more turn of protect at the very least.
This is cutting it real close because we really don't know what range that this Rillaboom would KO at. Even still, best play is to go ahead and protect. If the protect does fire off, then the burn, I do believe, finishes it here, but protect fails, and the Grassy Glide seals it. That's a really down to the wire win for Professor Walnut, and much needed to keep them in this series.
Absolutely, and going into this game 3 here, I'm super curious to see Sanaito going to readjust, go back to their previous leads. Are they looking to try to force the Colossal again? We see Professor Walnut here setting up once again with the Togetic and the Slowbro, really leaning heavily, I have to imagine, into that Trick Room strategy. But I'm so curious to see how Sanaito's going to respond.
Agreed. And do you start to leverage the Colossal a little bit more? Do you go back to the initial strategy? Because the lack of fear that Professor Walnut's shown into this double electric duo, say that 5 times fast, maybe spooking Sanaito into not selecting it. Maybe they were feeling a little bit too lucky with the paralysis that they got in game 1 with the discharge, and they didn't want to rely on that again. So they're trying to pivot into a little bit of a broader strategy to deal with what Professor Walnut's bringing.
One thing that I do want to mention is I love the way that Walnut is leveraging this deal on the select screen. Sanaito's looking at it, they have to respect it in some capacity in the end game potentially if it's there. Once again, we see Walnut not selecting it and instead opting for that Rillaboom. And Sanaito is having to look at that and say, hey, even if I don't know if it's there, I have to think about it. I have to have them back in my head. Like, is it going to come out?
Okay, and then we see the same lead as game 2. So final game, Sanaito's putting all of their eggs into the GMAX Colossal basket. Professor Walnut not looking scared. They've got access to Trick Room. They've got access to Dynamax, which has been a huge pain for Sanaito to actually deal with once it gets the rain down, especially since if the Colossal fires off a Heat Wave and Max Flare, they're not going to be putting out a lot of damage early on. They have to rely on the Vocalith instead. Doing that early reduces the amount of turns that you get later into the game to have those rocks chip out the opponent. So it's not really what Sanaito would prefer. Here we see again the opening turns with the Trick Room from Slowbro, the swap in for Politoed into the Colossal slot, and we're just right back at square one from game 2.
Very curious to see here what Sanaito's going to do in terms of their targeting. They have the Sneasel out. They're underneath Trick Room. Are they going to be looking for those Snarls again? Are they going to be looking to target on the Togetic that has been taunted? I'm really curious here too as well to see what the Politoed is doing. Are they looking to go for an Encore into the Slowbro? Are they looking to mix it up a little bit? Like what moves are going to come out here to really change the first turn of this Trick Room?
And I think curiously enough, there's some moves from both Sneasel and Politoed that we haven't seen. I'm expecting Politoed to be around at the very end of the game, and we still haven't seen its 4th move, so still wondering what it is. Not sure if it's Hypnosis, it could be Amnesia, it could be Parasong, like you mentioned earlier. Very curious as to what the utility behind this Politoed is, outside of just saying, hey, here's a Slowbro. I directly counter it through Water Absorb. Because even through that, you still have to deal with the Rillaboom that's sitting right next to it, and before we even get to that, the Sneasel goes down to Sash from the Max Geyser.
The Max Geyser does come out, not into the Politoed slot, knowing that there is the Water Absorb there, not fearing any kind of ally switch shenanigans, though. I'm not certain if either of these mons do receive that move. Scald going into Rillaboom, maybe just trying to get some damage down to that Togetic, and doubling up with the triple Axle. Will this be enough, though?
Good coverage. They were trying to get rid of the Togetic as early as possible, and Scald plus a 3-hit triple Axle was not enough to take out the Rillaboom.
Just shy of the KO there.
Yeah, this is actually a really tough position from Sanaito. You really wanted that kill either onto the Rillaboom or the Togetic to kind of relieve some pressure and get your own offense going. The pickup on Rillaboom would have been especially good. We're just talking about Politoed wanting to survive into the end game, but maneuvering into that end game while Rillaboom is still at large, still able to dish out a ton of damage, is trouble. And interesting enough, Zapdos comes in.
Now, hold on a second. We've seen the Colossal, Sneasel, and Politoed. Zapdos being the last. We're really looking here at our max options. It's appearing as though Colossal will not be maxing this game 3.
Quite possibly. Like, you gotta imagine that it's still an option. Trick Room is still up. Politoed comes back in. So outside of the Grassy Glide, we know Politoed moves ahead of the Rillaboom, and we know that the Grassy Glide doesn't one-hit KO it. So that gives Sanaito a little bit of room to possibly go ahead and finish it off while Slowbro finishes its last turn of Dynamax, but this is still a scary position because Zapdos is not really... Oh, wait a minute.
Zapdos is going for the max here. I have to imagine that. I believe that's not Politoed after seeing that it's just Scald. There it is.
Zapdos in the rain, under Trick Room, looking to probably KO the Rillaboom at this point.
One would have to imagine. Also, something to point out is we saw in the first game that Zapdos is scarfed. There's no max guard here on the Zapdos. It's going to be taking whatever this Slowbro wants to dish out, and we've seen Professor Walnut selecting that max Hailstorm. This is going to hurt.
And this is kind of a repeat from their previous match in Week 6, where initially Sanaito led Zapdos into the Slowbro. It just took the Max Lightning with Wakan Berry and then fired back a Hailstorm. But here, we're going to go ahead and fire off a Max Flare. This may be a boon for Sanaito, as it's going to clear out the hail, so no chip damage for him. And it's also going to douse out any Hydro Pumps that the Slowbro can fire off, because I believe that should be the third turn of Slowbro's Dynamax, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. I miscounted for a second, so I needed a little bit of some straightening out.
We had the Max Geyser into the Sneasel, then a follow-up into the Sneasel again, and there goes the Max Hailstorm firing off into that Zapdos. And Porygon Z comes out here. What can we expect to see? We're still underneath Trick Room here, I believe. It should be the last turn, if I'm not mistaken. And there it is. Professor Walnut helped me out there. So what are we looking for here with this Zapdos? Are we going to take this Hyper Beam or this Ice Beam into the Zapdos here? We're switching out, and it looks like Sanaito just letting it rock. Wholly unafraid of whatever this Porygon Z has to offer.
This is looking scarier and scarier by the minute. Shoutouts to Professor Walnut, sneakily reserving this Porygon Z for this end game. As we show it, it's going to go ahead and take out Zapdos, again, under this Trick Room, able to move ahead of it. And now Sanaito's down to just Politoed and Colossal to try and navigate this end game. And it's a pretty tough ask. Fortunately, we do have the Sun. Again, that's going to help with surviving the Hydro Pumps. So maybe it gets a Weakness Policy proc, maybe it gets in the Steam Engine proc along with it. But without the Gmax Volcalith, it's still going to be tough to really clean this up, because if they're, as far as their rock move, if they just want like good stab damage, they're reduced to either Meteor Beam or Ancient Power. If it's Meteor Beam, that might be the end of the game. They don't really have the cushion to run a 2-turn move without a power herb. If it's Ancient Power, you're not really doing a ton of damage with such a low base power move. So you may have to rely on the Heat Wave that it showed. Underneath the Sun, it's going to do a good chunk of damage to the Porygon Z. So that's something you can still rely on. But again, the ask is that how do you deal with the Slowbro after that? Because so far, based on the max turns Sanaito's had, I don't believe it has Solar Beam. I think it might just have something like Earth Power. So it doesn't really have a way to really hit the Slowbro hard. But just as I'm saying that, Polito goes down to the Hyper Beam from Porygon Z. So now this is an even tougher game for Sanaito. It's all on the shoulders of the big
ancient power that you were mentioning.
Right
there firing off in the Togetic. Colossal getting the boost there. The ancient power does offer, allegedly.
That's the start. That might actually be something. I think really important here is the special defense boost, because we saw just how much damage that even the Porygon Z did with just Dark Pulse. into that same slot. Remember, Colossal's base special defense is not really great, and it opts for another ancient power into the Togetic, who just
Light
goes ahead
screen
and uses
coming out
light
from the
screen.
Togetic. Negating that boost from the ancient power previously. I'm not sure if Sanaito does or does not have the heat wave here, or just really fishing for these ancient power boosts. But that looked like the opportunity there to click the heat wave and remove that Porygon Z while recharging from the hyper beam.
Right? Especially when you're expecting that the Togetic is going to be using the Follow Me in the first place. You can kind of like double up on your efforts by just spamming Heat Wave. The initial Ancient Power boost is definitely a boon, but we got to pull some double duty right now, and it's really tough to do as Light Screen saves Togetic from getting knocked out, which may have been all for the better because we need to deal with this Slowbro in kind of an isolated environment. Bad news is Porygon Z is still alive and still just healthy enough to fire off another Dark Pulse into the Colossal.
Also, bad news that sun's gone down there. We now those heat waves no longer boosted by that weather. And it's going to be even more difficult here to power through this light screen set up by the Togetic.
Meanwhile, Togetic with the helping hand, almost 80% damage. It looks like it's about 75% damage into the Colossal.
And the
helping
flinch.
Hand.
Dark Pulse happened flinch. I believe that all but seals it up there, folks. I mean, we have the nasty plot. We have the Dark Pulse coming out. This is looking like wraps.
And no Protect from Sanaito. He's just gonna eat the next attack. Oh, I'm sorry. Helping Hand moves before Protect. Excuse me. I have a lack of Pokemon knowledge if you didn't know.
Protect coming out, but I believe at this point it's moot. The PZ is set up into position. That Burn is not going to be taking it out anytime soon. There's still the Slowbro back, now still having its water moves out of Sun. They put up a good effort, but I believe Sanaito's done here.
Yeah, at most, hopefully you get the triple Protect. Maybe that'll be enough to knock out the PZ, and you rely on Hydro Pump misses in the following turns. But nope, the Protect fails, and that'll be it. Professor Walnut seals up the final game of this set and moves on.
Closing it out 2-1 for us. Honestly, I expected the first set to be the grinder, the back and forth match, and it turns out that, to my surprise, Professor Walnut and Sanaito here really put on a show for us. 2-1 victory in Professor Walnut's favor. I'm really showing their adaptation skills, bouncing back from a game 1 loss there, and choosing to not bring the Registeel anymore, and really opting into that Rillaboom to put on pressure into Politoed. They gave him such a headache in game 1. Showing great adaptation skills there, and just shutting out Sanaito there in those last 2 games.
Right, and I do want to kind of give a shout out to like everyone participating here. They've shown a ton of adaptations from their previous strategies to to get to this point and try and mix it up and see if they can overcome their demon from the previous round. Because again, these were grudge matches. Patillac versus Strider week 7, Professor Walnut versus Sanaito week 6. So they've all kind of shown their hands and are trying to maneuver around the strategies they fell to the last time. But unfortunately, once again, just seems like that wasn't the case, despite their best efforts. So congratulations to Professor Walnut and to Patillac for moving on into the semifinals. Now, what we're only doing 1 round per week. So I'm waiting for the next set of matches to finish up and be recorded, and graciously, hopefully, the players will hand them over to me. And then we'll meet back up next Saturday at the same time to go over them. If the finals finish up around that time as well, I'll be more than glad to present that to you. Manny, if you can stick around for that as well, I'd appreciate your efforts and for you carrying me through this commentary.
Absolutely.
But if not, then just consider it week by week. Saturday by Saturday, we'll go through semifinals and finals respectively, and then we'll go from there. Either way, I had a pretty fun time going through these matches. I'm looking forward to the next one as well. This video will be up later on the Georgia VGC YouTube channel. I apologize I didn't provide you with any links for that, but just simply search through that on YouTube and you will certainly find it. Either way, that's all from me today. Man, did you have anything to go on?
No, thank you guys for having me. I think it's been some fantastic matches to watch. It's really awesome to see the players adapt from throughout the season and bringing new strategies into the playoffs. And I'm very curious to see these next week matchups, honestly, from the top 2 teams from the format. Super excited for that.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you coming by once again. So stay tuned. If you want to follow my Twitter, I'm going to be posting updates on this regularly. Again, I've been following this league for the past 8 weeks, following with reports and coverage on just what's been going on. So if you want to check that out, that's up on my YouTube channel as well. Again, sorry for didn't provide you with any links, but a simple search will get you to the right place. I'll make sure that you have the right links and commands next time. But until that time, I appreciate you guys stopping by, and we'll continue our coverage next Saturday. Until then, stay cool. Peace.